I got a mix here from the band called Eels of Love. There are links in the description. And I just want to play the final mix just for a little bit. They're an instrumental band. I just want to play a little bit of this final mix here, and then we're going to go from where we finished to where we started, and I'll give you a breakdown of everything. Right, so you hear a lot of funky grooves going on here. So we have drums, one guitar, a keyboard, and one like vocal mic just to talk in between the sets. So let's turn everything off. Let me get my frequency analyzer here so you guys can at least like see the frequencies while we're hearing it. And we're only going to focus on this one song here. It's called Eels in Space. In space. So let's start with just the drums of how they sound raw. So as far as microphones go, I have no idea what mics are on the drums because this was QXT's mic collection. They aren't mine. What I do know is the overheads are my Lewitt 140 Airs. Everything was recorded into the Wing Compact, and this is the raw preamp sound before any processing on the Wing Compact. So the first thing I do with all of my tracks is I split them off into, first thing I do with all my tracks is I bust them all out to master instrument buses. So I have drums, bass, guitar, keys, and since there's no vocal, I have the vocal right here to just like have. So this is going straight to the mix bus. I have everything going to a mix bus, which is then sent to my which is what like the master output. So the first thing I do with everything, right, is I put on auto align. And this plugin, if you are going to spend money on any plugin, and if you want to like stick to stock plugins or whatever, if you were to spend money on one third-party plugin, you have to get auto align. Like I cannot stress this enough of how much better your recordings are going to sound if you use auto align. So once I have auto align and everything's like time aligned, phase corrected, all that shit, let's go to the kick drum. So here's my processing chain. So I start with silencer. Next I have the UAD 1073 preamp. Then I have the Pro Q3. Then I have SSL 4K. Then I have Distressor. And then I have another instance of the Pro Q3. And this will coordinate with the bass. So I'm going to solo the kick drum. And I'm going to add everything one by one so that you can hear exactly what's going on with the kick as every effect comes into play here. pretty crazy difference, right? So that is what really like gave these drums like a lot of character, was the 1073. So as you can see, like I have the high end cranked almost all the way up to just get that crispiness and that clickiness of the kick. So let's go to the snare drum now. I have silencer. Again, Neve 1073. You can almost see a theme of where I'm going with this, guys. I like to have the silencer to just act as my noise gate. Then I like to have the 1073 as my pre, sculpt the tone how I want. Then I use a Pro Q3 to take out anything that's unnecessary and what I need, like absolute precision in my EQ. So like the harsh frequencies, all that shit. I use a Pro Q3 for that. My main EQ and tone sculpturing is the SSL 4KE from SSL. Then I have then from the SSL I go into an instance of the Slate Bomber and Custom Series Lift. This gives a little more punch and a little more nice crispiness in the high end. Then it gets compressed into the API bus compressor. And I know it must be crazy for you to see a bus compressor on a snare drum, but this sounds epic. The Waves version of the API bus compressor sounds awesome too, but this was included with the UAD bundle, so I use this one. And then finally, I have a gated reverb to just give the snare a little bit more of a sustain. And that's what gets the sustain of the snare drum to cut through the mix. So individually, I'm going to just turn on everything, and we'll go from there. So that is just what a wild difference that snare drum makes. Toms were pretty self-explanatory. Tom 1, I used a trigger because the microphone came in a little distorted and the cable was bad, so all I got was a distorted snap of the signal. So it was inaudible and there was nothing I could do. I had to replace it. So I have a sample replacement there, and I have just a Pro Q3 to just take out all of the offensive overtones of the boom that the sample gave me. So there's my Tom 1. Toms 2 and 3 were all real. So each of them had the same exact processing. So they all had silencer, 1073, Pro Q3, SSL, and distressor. So let's now find an area where there are some tom hits. And I believe right here is a good example. So let's do that. So those are my toms. The toms and snare got bussed out to a plate verb And then I again EQ'd the plate verb to just have the optimal mid-range, because I don't need the low end and the high end amplified with the reverb. So let's go to an area where the snare and the toms will play together, and I'll turn these on. So those are my toms. And then I get to overheads. First off, let's just listen to the raw recording of the overheads, because these Lewitt 140 Airs are just so fucking good. I cannot. I have never been so completely sold on a microphone like I was with the Lewitt 140 Airs. So the signal flow for the overheads, I had the SSL. I had the custom opto compressor from Slate. It just sounded the smoothest to me when I was hard compressing it. And then I have a parallel compression on the using the 1176. So I'm going to turn them on one by one. You hear the attack of the cymbal hits just come right through to that. So, and on the drum bus, I have another instance of the 1176. Let's just do a without it off, with it off, and then turn it on. Super punchy, like just really, really good. So let's turn everything off, and then I'll turn everything back on. What a difference those drums make. Let's go to bass. So I have here's my bass flow. So I have SSL, Distressor, Pro Q3, and the stock Logic compressor. So let's hear the bass without everything. So because Paul, the bass player, he has such a unique bass tone, and this is essentially like the lead vocal, for the most part. He's got a very intricate, plucky, stringy part. I want to make sure that his bass like really cuts through. So I have the SSL channel here, Distressor, Pro Q3 to take out the fundamental frequency of the kick drum, so that the bass and the kick drum are working together. And then I have a stock Logic compressor where it's just ducking the bass guitar whenever the kick drum hits by like 1.5 dB tops. So I'm going to turn everything on. Next is guitar. And again, we only had one guitar channel to work with here. Let's hear what it sounds like completely raw. So the signal flow for this guitar was pretty crazy. So there's a lot going on here with the Pro Q3. There was a lot of harsh frequencies coming in with the upper mids, and I wanted a very aggressive low pass shelter, a low pass filter. Jesus Christ, low pass shelter. Jesus. Then I had the SSL. I had the Pro multiband compressor fab filter. So anytime there's a low end chugs, they get compressed, and whenever there's like screeching high end parts, the high end gets a little bit compressed there. And then one of my secret weapons for great guitar tones that cut through everything, I love the sound that the API EQs give. A little bit of 1.5K boost. It sounds awesome. And it's the only thing I'm using on this API channel strip is the 1.5 EQ boost. So let's turn everything on. Next is keyboards. And keyboards were really easy. I just put on an LA2A and SSL. It was extremely easy because this keyboard was dialed in. So I use the LA2A to just lightly like even it out. I use this as just like a generic, like, let's compress slightly to just even out the levels. If I want harsh compression, I'll put on an 1176, but the LA2A just sounds great on, I mean, anything sounds great through this thing. And then the only thing I did was I took out a little bit of 3.6K on the SSL. Next, I have finally I have the room mic. So with this, was at the board facing out towards the audience behind the PA speaker, because that's where I was. I was up in the booth. You guys saw the live stream of this whole show. This is the room mic as is recorded raw. So from there, I have the SSL, taking out a little bit around 2.94K, so around 3K. That's all I'm doing with that. And high pass filter up to 190, low pass 11.8. I also have the compressor on 4:1, and I'm just taking out like 3 dB on the SSL. And then I don't know why I closed that. And then same thing with the overheads. This custom opto from Slate just sounds really good on overheads in rooms, so that's what I'm using. So I'm going to turn them on one by one. So that from there, everything sounds great. We're going to head up to the mix bus, where all of the gluiness happens. So my mix bus settings, I have the SSL bus 2. My 3 go-to mastering mix bus chains. I have the SSL bus comp 2, UAD capital mastering compressor, and Ozone. But Ozone, there's like 5 or 6 different things going on here at once. So I'm going to turn everything off individually on Ozone so that I can turn them on individually as I play the track. So let's unsolo the room. So now this is the mix as is with no mastering processing. Sounds great, but it could be a lot better. So I have gain of 2, attack 30, auto release, 2-to-1 ratio, and I'm only getting like 2 dB of gain reduction on the bus comp. Then the capital mastering comp, I adjust the input and the threshold so that slowest attack, fast release, and I'm getting 1 dB max of reduction. And then I adjust the output so that it is roughly around like -4, -3 dB. And then I hit it with the saturator. This basically just like amplifies everything and this gives a really great analog saturation. And then I hit Ozone. So the first things first, I have an equalizer, a low end focus, impact, which is what I honestly, I don't even know the definition of the impact. All I know is it sounds great, and I like it. The imager, so the stereo spread. Clarity, which is where I get a lot of my high-end. Stabilizer, which basically just like holds everything down. Like if you're kneading dough for a pizza, this is just kneading the dough. Dynamic EQ, which takes basically acts like a multi-band compressor. And then the limiter, limited to -10 LUFS. And that is my mastering chain. So I'm going to play the track. I'm going to add everything on one by one so you can see and hear where we're going with everything. love this song because that part right there sounds a lot like Guile's theme from Street Fighter. So that's that. That is the entire mixing chain of Anil's of Love set. With that being said, we also filmed Multicam edit. And I want to make sure that we can do this justice. You know what? I could just maximize this whole thing. So this, so I filmed. This angle was my A7 III. The stage wide shot on the side of the stage was my A7R5. I had someone with a gimbal, and Paul's wife was filming more close-ups. And there's a GoPro. I don't know why I keep saying GoPro. That's my DJI Action 4 behind the drummer. So combine all of that with the multicam edit and the multicam mix, and you get this.
Skull deals in space.